Okay, I think it's safe to say it's official. We're live on Facebook. Good morning. Happy Friday. It's May 3rd, 2019. I'm back after a little bit of a break, which got extended beyond what I expected. And today we're going to talk about tracking and managing your content in Airtable. Exciting stuff. Oh, now people are coming in. Now they all come in. Nothing like wait until the last minute. So we'll give it a minute. We'll let people in. Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Is everybody feeling better today?
Yeah. Sarah says, I thought you were taking a month off. Well, not quite a month. I took a couple of weeks off. A few weeks, actually, I think. So we got some people on the live feed. We've got Tiffany, Sarah, and Dan. We've got some people here in the panel. I'll give it another minute. I still have people coming in. All right. All right, now I'm going to shut down some distractions here. Cool. Somebody just signed up for the bookkeeping course. That's funny. Okay, speaking of, I'm going to actually talk about that for a minute. So let me just check that everything's working properly. Everybody can hear me? Yeah? I sound okay? All right, somebody say something because you all just got real quiet. It looks like everybody's muted.
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I just want to make sure I can hear you.
Sounds good, and love the hair.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a little spiky today.
Yeah.
A little spiky, and then the headset kind of pushes it down in the back. So I'm very Los Angeles today.
Ciao from Italy.
You are.
Right? I think me and Justin Bieber are gonna, we're gonna go have lunch today or something. I don't know. Maybe not Justin Bieber. Maybe someone else. Anyway, so this topic, by the way, came up because, as I think a lot of you know, maybe all of you know, I started playing around with the Kajabi platform originally with the intention of just putting courses over there. And the more I played with it, the more I said, holy cow, this is an awesome platform. And I started to see little by little, and then more and more, I was assured of it, that moving my entire website over to the Kajabi platform will actually remove a ton of headaches that come with managing WordPress. And don't get me wrong, I love WordPress. It's been the tool for a long, long time. But I just think this is going to be even better. There's just a lot of maintenance that will go away that I can see very clearly by moving over to Kajabi. So we've got the new bookkeeping course on there. And I've got a couple of other courses on there too. So first things first, another thing that I'm doing, and I'm actually going to share my screen right away. See, I don't even have Greg with me today. Usually Greg's here to remind me to share my screen. The first thing is make sure that you register for the blog. I know it's a little weird to have to register for the blog, but if you click this link at the top, and the new site, by the way, if you want to get to the new platform, right now it's at courses.nerdenterprises.com. Eventually I'll change that, but don't worry, I'll redirect this subdomain to make sure that it's still seamless for any of you who have been using that link. But if you go here, you just have to quickly sign up for the blog. You can leave this unchecked, and I won't bother you with emails. Most of you probably already get my emails anyway. But if you do check this off, then it'll put you on an email list that's sort of internal to Kajabi, which I'll use to send out updates letting you know when there's a new post, when there's a new course, when there's a new lesson, never more than once a week. But it's just because the way I decided to set this up, Kajabi does actually have a blog, which works like a normal blog. But the infrastructure is more limited, and one of the things I started to see was that if I use the course kind of template or layout, it's really an amazing way to organize content for a blog. So basically what I'm doing is creating a free course called Nerd's Blog so I can lay out all my content and organize it with sections and subject sections and then lessons for the actual posts. In a way, I'm shooting myself in the foot because I lose the search engine optimization because it's not visible to Google. But I put all my videos up on YouTube, so YouTube will just link back to this, and all should be well. And then once you've signed up here, if I back up, actually, I set it up here. I linked it here. So once you've signed up, the blog will show up in your My Courses area, right? Because like I said, it's like having a free course. So once you're here, you'll see that in any other courses you might have signed up for. In mine, of course, it shows all of my courses, right? So you'll see Nerd's blog. And then, and then back to the bookkeeping course, that's here. It's very much alive and well. And it comes with a community now. I decided I want to try and keep everything in one place. So Kajabi gives you the ability to create a community. And it's new, so it's a little bit limited, but it's simple enough. We can create topics so that you can click into the appropriate topic and ask questions relating to whatever you've seen in the course. And the course itself is rolling out. I'm putting out new content on the course every week. The whole first section is a deep dive on bank feeds, which walks you through every possible way to get transactions from your bank into QuickBooks Online, including, of course, the obvious, linking up your bank accounts. But if your bank feeds break, I show you how you can grab a CSV and upload that, and then all your rules will apply just as though you had downloaded it, which is really cool. There's a deep dive on the rules, how you can set them up. Some complex rules where you can put conditional logic into the rule. And basically, as an example, say if the amount is more than this, here's how it gets coded. If it's less, so if you're looking at, for example, a $500 threshold for fixed assets versus expenses, I show you how to do that in the rules. I show you how to export the rules, clean them, and then import them back into QBO because the order of the rules matters, and that gets discussed. And so on. So it's really thorough. And then, of course, I show you how, if you want to, you can usurp the bank feeds area altogether, take a CSV from your bank, code it in Excel, and then map it with SAS Ant Excel transactions and import everything straight into the register in QuickBooks Online. So I'm not playing games with this course. It's very, very thorough. Right here it is, coding the bank statement and importing. And then I have an area which for most of you, you probably don't need. This actually shows you how you can reconcile your account in 5 minutes once you've done any of the other options because everything's there and it's matched up. So it takes 2 seconds to reconcile at that point. And then I have a section here that goes through every single list. Most of you are already going to know a lot of this stuff. But as you can see, the layout is beautiful. And here I actually go into every little nook and cranny. Recurring transactions you might want to take a look at if you're signed up for the course, even if you're very familiar with all the other lists. This one, if you don't play with it much, you're going to want to play with it after reviewing this lesson. And then I have this other sort of appendix kind of lesson on here are the other lists that really aren't covered above that will be covered in more detail later on in the course. And now I'm in the process of rolling out lessons on this section, which is your sales, customers, and accounts receivable. Everything you need to know about customers and sub-customers, kind of a recap of what I covered in the lists part, products and services. And then I go into projects here, which I've never touched yet. This is the first time I've done anything on projects in QuickBooks Online. And it's gotten better. I didn't like it at first. I didn't want to touch it. That's part of why I never produced any content about it. But now I've got content on it. So that's the bookkeeping, the bulletproof, the business owner's bulletproof bookkeeping course. And there is messaging in here that goes beyond just QuickBooks and bookkeeping and how to actually take it to that level of what I call bulletproof and making sure that every number can be proven. In fact, I have a lesson planned to stick back into the first section that kind of recaps the whole first section in that context of how to actually make this stuff bulletproof. So that's that course. I'll send out links to everything, tomorrow when I upload today's video, so that if you're wondering how to find any of this, don't worry about it. I'll send it to you. I'll make it really easy. But like I said, it's courses.nerdenterprises.com is where all this new stuff is. And then, especially in terms of what we're about to cover today, I have a course on here called How to Become a Content Creation Machine. This was sort of requested by Marriott specifically, even though she's in 97 and up, and we have a lot of this content in the 97 and up course already published. She suggested that if I created a course that focused just on that stuff, and in addition to the lessons that I've done, there's also webinars, Zooms that we've done on the subject. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff in here on how to create content, and that's going to be especially, if you want to do what we're talking about today, which is track and manage all of your content, this is the part that comes first in terms of how to create it all. and I walk you through everything from how to write the blog post, how to get it optimized for SEO purposes, how to record and edit the video, and the settings that you need to know about when you're publishing. And then we have, that's the making videos part. And then we have a section here, which is some of the Zooms that we've done. I just put it into one place, which gives you best practices and extra tips and tricks, things that we've done where I've had Matthew Fulton on with me, and we've covered a lot of this kind of stuff. So there's hours of content here on how to create content, which will prepare you for what you're about to learn today in terms of then tracking and managing all of it. So that's how to how to become a content creation machine. And then this is back to Nerd's blog. This is what the blog actually looks like once you go in. It's new, so I don't have a whole lot in here yet, but obviously I'm going to be taking old content from the old blog and moving it over here. So little by little, I'll be adding stuff in here. The Kajabi category has one post on actually how to do this, how to use a course to create a blog on the Kajabi platform. So if you're interested in learning more about Kajabi, if doing courses is something you want to do, or if you're just interested in it from the web design standpoint, then definitely reach out to me. I can most definitely help you with all of that. So with that in mind, let's check in on the Facebook feeds and see if anybody's got any questions, comments, or thoughts. So far, so good. Okay, so that takes care of the housekeeping stuff. And like I said, I'll send you out links to everything in case you want more information on that. Let's go look at the registration questions that people asked when they signed up for today. I want to cover those. One person says, thank you for doing this. Will you do a recording? Obviously, yes. The recording will be made available. The whole subject of today came up because being in the Kajabi platform, and I'm in the Kajabi users group on Facebook, I had posted a video, that's in my blog now, about how to create a blog using a course, and some people were asking about it, and then somebody asked about managing content, and I said, oh, I can do a webinar on that. Airtable is the perfect tool. And so the people kind of followed up and requested that I actually do it. So here we are. So that was where the first question came from. Somebody from my Kajabi users group, not my group, but the users group that they've created. Alexa says, we'll try to attend from Italy. Hello from Italy, Alexa. Where are you? I know I saw you come in. There you are. Are you in Italy? Just nod or wave. Alexa's in Italy. Let's see. So Byron wants to know, did I move from Active Collab and totally over to Airtable? Also, do you bring over old content in Active Collab? So not exactly, no. Airtable kind of a different animal. Active Collab, we moved from Active Collab to ClickUp, right? And we've done a series of Zooms recently on ClickUp. So ClickUp is the tool that's kind of replaced Active Collab for us. Airtable, I did do a video on how you could use Airtable to track your projects and tasks and things. But ClickUp is designed for the job. Airtable is more, you can build it, but why reinvent the wheel? ClickUp does, the reason we switched, and I don't switch these kinds of things very easily. I was with Active Collab for years, but the reason we switched is ClickUp just handles this beautifully. And I'm now several months into using ClickUp and very, very happy with it, and very happy with the choices I've made in terms of how I'm using it. So very happy. So I've got a question here, Carolyn. You sent it privately. Would you rather I not address this publicly before I read it? Or no. Was that, okay. Okay, so if I'm moving content from...
I'm fine.
Sorry?
I'm fine. You can address it publicly. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it publicly.
No, sure. So if I'm moving content from WordPress to with Yoast, is that what that's meant to say?
Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, so you for your optimization, and now do you have that tool available in Kajabi? And if you don't have that tool, what could you use in its place?
So Kajabi, first of all, right? Okay, I understand the question now. So again, especially the way I'm doing it, even if it had a Yoast plugin, wouldn't matter because I'm doing it as a course, which is not visible to Google. If I was using Kajabi's actual blog, then there's no plugin per se, but Kajabi has the infrastructure built into its platform to make its stuff searchable. But so you could go one of two ways with this. First of all, I think you go right onto Yoast's website, and you could sort of drop your content in there and get it optimized and then post it in Kajabi if you were using their actual blog section, which is visible to Google. That's one way. I still have my WordPress site, so what I'm going to do for anything I do on Optimized is I'll drop it into WordPress, use the Yoast plugin to get it optimized, and then once it's optimized, I can just copy and paste it wherever, and I just won't publish it on the WordPress site. So I'm still sort of working out what my strategy is going to be there, because like I said, the way I'm choosing to do the blog, my stuff's not going to be exposed to Google. It won't be searchable. It's private in a sense. So I'm going to be using my YouTube channel primarily for my SEO now, which is what's driven most of my SEO anyway, right? It's most people who find me, I think, do Google searches, they find my videos on YouTube, right? And then they get from YouTube over to my website. That's primarily where most of my traffic comes from. And so I know I can count on that strategy, at least thus far, because I have a big, subscribership on YouTube, right? So that's kind of where I'm going with that. So that hopefully answers Byron's question. It's not Active Collab to Airtable, it's Active Collab to ClickUp. And then as to the question, do I bring over all my old content in Active Collab? I don't. We've discussed this in 97 and up a lot. Anytime I switch platforms like this, I sort of look at it as an opportunity to really clean things by only bringing over what I need when and as the need arises, right? That's always my strategy and like I'm going to do the same thing moving the content over from the website. In fact, one of the people on the Kajabi users group who's very helpful is a young lady by the name of Erica Friday. She's a virtual assistant. She's written an article specifically about how to kind of move from WordPress to Kajabi. And she had a great suggestion, which is that you look at your analytics and focus on the posts that get the most traffic. And those are the posts that you want to prioritize moving over to the new platform. So that's in terms of moving your content over. In terms of moving projects and tasks and to-dos, again, a lot of us tend to accumulate a lot of old stale stuff in these tools that we just never bothered to check off as complete or what have you. So I don't plan to bring all of it over. I just bring over what I need when and as the need arises, to answer that part of that question. Let's see. Janice, I'm a newbie that wants to start out right. Will you be able to first... wait, I'm not sure. The question's a little bit jumbled, I think, from the keyboard. Will I be able to first, how to get the content? Do you want to unmute and clarify, Janice? I think I saw Janice in here. There you are.
Yeah, I just want to go from the beginning on how to get everything in.
Yes, I'm going to walk you through you mean everything into Airtable, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to start out by walking you through a process that shows you how powerful this is, and then we're going to go into a completely blank Airtable database. They call it a base, and we're going to build it today. So I'm going to show you the whole entire process, and then I'm going to show you kind of how to automate this stuff. So let's see, what other questions? Jesse says, getting started with Zapier, what to zap and what not to zap. Jesse, are you still with us? I think I saw you sign in. There he is. So, I mean, it's not a Zapier webinar today per se, where I'm going to get that deep as far as what to zap and what not to zap, but I am going to show you how Zapier is how I'm using Zapier to take what's in Airtable and push it into Buffer so it can be scheduled to post on the various social media platforms. So you'll see that much today for sure. All right, so that takes care of these. Let's check in on the chat here. All right, nothing new there. Facebook feed. So Faye says, thought this was about Airtable. It's about Airtable among other things. I'm getting to that, but I always allow people to ask questions in registration. Some of them are not necessarily exactly on topic, but I still answer them as a courtesy, of course. So now we're going to look at Airtable, which you've been actually seeing on my screen for a few minutes now. And this is sort of my master content project here. And I want to show you, like I just said, how this works. We're going to kind of work backwards here. Once it's built, how powerful this gets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a process here, because the way this is set up, now that I've got all of these posts in here, the idea is not just to track and manage this stuff, but also make it easy to post in social media. And I've used a lot of tools over the years to schedule posts. The last one I was using before I built the system you're about to see was Meet Edgar. And I loved Meet Edgar because it let you create a library of content, which then you could schedule. But where Meet Edgar began to fail me, and it came up especially, this was kind of like the last straw for me, when Twitter changed its algorithm, I want to say maybe a year ago, and started to make it clear that if you tried to post the same thing, again, too quickly since the last time you posted it, they were going to stop it. They were going to block you from being able to do that. They're trying to cut down on spam, but for somebody like me, when you have a lot of content that you can publish, posting the same thing more than once inside of even, let's say, a week is not necessarily going to inundate people, because I have a lot of people following me and I have a lot of content that I put out around the clock. So it frustrated me. Meanwhile, I wanted to be able to revamp my schedule quickly in Meet Edgar, and that's where it became very difficult to do. Because with Meet Edgar, every time you schedule something, it's like a weekly schedule, and each one stands on its own. And there's no way, at least as of then and last time I checked, there's no way to sort of in bulk wipe out that schedule and start clean. And that's what I needed to do. And I had needed to do it a few times. And I'm sitting there literally clicking one schedule at a time on a whole calendar that's filling up an entire week. One at a time, just clicking things and deleting them so I could clear it out and start over. And I said, this is taking me way too much time. Reached out to their support. Based on their response, of course, they thanked me for their feedback and whatnot, but I didn't get the impression this was something they were seeing as any kind of a priority. I guess other people don't have the issue. I guess most people just create their schedule at once and set it and forget it and don't worry about changing it. I think that's a mistake, personally, whether you have a little content or a lot. So I built this system. I had a system like this anyway. I've always had some kind of a list. I used to do it in Smartsheet. Now it's in Airtable, where I track everything I've ever published, because I publish not just on my own website, but other platforms too. So you'll even see I've got a column for that here in Airtable. So I have, most of it, of course, is on nerdenterprises.com, but I have Fundira and I have some other places where I've published. And there's more than even what you'll see here, but this is, of course, all the stuff that I feel is sort of relevant and important enough as of right now. So I want to show you the process I have, and then I'll show you how we're going to build this. And that's what we're going to be spending the rest of today's time on. So in addition to the other columns, and I'll walk through all the columns when I go back and show you how to build this all, I have these columns here that say post to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook page, and Instagram, right? These are the social platforms that I post to. So what I'm going to do is, because the way this works, the way this is set up, if I check something off, that's going to trigger Zapier to come in and schedule that post in Buffer, right? But there's one caveat to this, which is that you only get to do it once. And you see how I have a bunch that are checked off here, because this is the stuff I scheduled last time I scheduled stuff. So I want to wipe all that out. I basically just copy and paste a blank checkbox, and Airtable is beautiful like that. So it'll paste the blank checkbox. It'll clear out all the check marks, right? So now everything's unchecked. But once you check something once in here, and again, I'm going to go back and explain why and how this works. Once you check off something once in here, it won't work to check it off again. So here's what I do, and you'll see it's very, very easy. So I'm going to go home, Control Home, to get to the very first cell here, so to speak, right? The first line item at the very top. And I'm going to select across and down. I'm going to select this whole Airtable base. Notice there are 166 rows. Okay, I'm going to click in here to a new row. And I'm going to add one more new row, just so I have a blank in between. And I'm going to paste the entire base over. It's warning me that I'm going to be pasting 165 records. That's fine. I'll say continue. And what that does is that refreshes everything. So these are now viewed all as new records that have never been checked off before. Okay, and now what I can do is from here, I can select everything. Right, so I started, that's why I like to leave the blank row in between, just to make sure. Right, so I start off at the blank row, select everything above, right-click, and delete all selected records. So if I wasn't even stopping to explain that, that would have taken me less than 15 seconds to do, right? And now the whole database is reset such that all I have to do is start checking checkboxes. So what do I want to post? Let's say I want to do all my QuickBooks Online stuff I want to schedule. I want to do a QuickBooks Online campaign. Well, guess what? I have a column here for campaign, which is different from category. I'm still in the process of kind of cleaning this up because at one point I was overlapping a lot between the category and the campaign. But I think of the category as kind of the folder where you would stick this thing in a file. And the campaign would be a common thread by which I'll string together a bunch of things. Now, a lot of times it could be the same. It could be that, you know, all of my posts in the QuickBooks Online category make up the campaign if the campaign is, in fact, you know, that I want to schedule my QuickBooks Online content, right? So let's say I want to do that. If I double-click the column, by the way, I can see all the categories that I have here. Notice you can, in a click, alphabetize them, so it's easy to find stuff. Right, so I have a campaign called QuickBooks Online Users because it's based on content that's aimed at people who use QuickBooks Online. So I could use that. The other way to do it is I know I have a QuickBooks Online category. I'll double click this, just click Alphabetize just in case there's something new that I hadn't done that with yet. And sure enough, here I also have the same QuickBooks Online Users. So it probably won't matter. But what I'll do now is I'm going to filter this. So I'm going to right-click the category column, and we're going to choose Add Filter. I could click Filter here, but when I right-click on a column, it knows that I actually want to filter by that column right away. Right? And then when I choose this, I don't have to scroll the list. I know I'm looking for QuickBooks Online. So if I start typing Quick, right, I actually have, this is what I was actually looking for, is Accounting Applications QuickBooks Online. So this will now filter the entire list for everything that's in my QuickBooks Online category. Okay, and let's see how much content that gives me. That gives me 28 posts. Okay, now we're going to go out, and I just want to schedule all of these really quickly. So I'm going to click on Post to Twitter, and then I'm going to copy that checkbox. I'm not going to do Instagram because Instagram's a little different. Copy and paste. Now, within the next 5 minutes, Zapier is going to take all 28 of these posts and schedule it in each of these networks. And Zapier is going to take them and it's going to stick it into Buffer. So that Buffer will space it out so it doesn't all get posted immediately, right? That's the way I've built this. Zapier grabs it from Airtable and sticks it in Buffer. And depending on, you know, I have a pro account with Zapier, so it will schedule, it will update Zaps like every 5 minutes or so. So sometimes you'll start to see the stuff come in very quickly. As you can see, my Twitter schedule is blank right now. But we'll check back in on this, and you'll see this will start to populate very quickly. All right, let's see if we've got any questions so far. So far, so good. All right, somebody's echoing badly, so just please make sure you're all muted. Unless you have a question, then feel free to unmute and ask me. So that's working backwards. I've got a process built here that makes it super easy and fast for me to get content scheduled on social media. Okay, and Zapier, like I said, runs every like 5 minutes for me. If you have the free Zapier account, I think it's every 15 minutes or something like that. And I'll get into how I set up the Zap. I'll back into all that. But now I want to show you how to build this in Airtable, right? That's kind of the main thing here. All right, so we're going to start with a blank screen. And one other thing, by the way, before I actually dig into this, I have this automated with another Zap such that anytime I publish something new in WordPress, it automatically gets added to the next row here in Airtable. And it adds all of the content. And by the way, when I schedule these posts, I also have the featured image here. So these images will get pushed through in these social posts. So everything goes out there with a nice, beautiful image, so it will look gorgeous on social media, right? So when I figured out that you could do that, that was kind of what sealed it for me, right? Because it just, everything's automated. So when I publish a new post in WordPress, it's going to come in here and it's going to add everything in. It doesn't add the image. That one I have to do manually, but it gives me the URL. There's another step in Zapier that automatically shortens that URL with bit.ly and sticks that one in here because that's the URL that I'm going to want to use in the post that gets published. It won't categorize it or set the campaign. I don't think it'll set the status, although I could have that default to published. and then it shows me the date that this is the date that this record was created. So notice all these are today's date at 8:25 a.m. because remember, I just copied and pasted them all. So in order to preserve when the actual post was published, that has its own column, which also is pulled from WordPress, that gives me the actual publication date. Right, so that's important. So we're going to build these columns here. Okay, so this way you can see kind of how Airtable works and how to do it. So we'll call this content main. I'm just renaming the table up here. Okay, and then Airtable just makes it really easy to add the columns and set them up in different formats so that you can organize the content, which is really the whole point of this, right? So the first column, we're going to call it the title. Right, and that would be the post title. It would be the exact title as it's called when I've published it on WordPress or wherever I've published the blog post or whatever the article is, right? Then the next thing I do is we're going to insert a field, excuse me, actually let's get these out of the way for a minute. We're going to hide these, the notes and attachments fields just to get them out of the way. We're going to add a new text column, and this is going to be we'll call it the headline. Now, in a lot of cases, the headline is going to be the same as the title, but what this does, and you'll see how this plays in as we build this out, is it gives me the flexibility, especially with what Twitter did. I'm going to need to rewrite my headlines periodically. I'm not going to change the title of the blog post, but the idea is, and this is why Twitter did this, and I actually like this, is it forces us to rewrite our headlines. And why I like this is because it's not the same old stuff that my audience is seeing every time I post. And of course, I notice when I rewrite a headline for the same post that I might have tweeted a few days ago, I get more engagement because the headline's different. So if people see the same old thing, they're like, oh, I saw that already, right? They see something new and different. And of course, the idea is to try and keep working on writing more catchy kind of headlines. Right, so we definitely want a separate column for the headline. A lot of times when these come in, I'm just kind of going to copy and paste from title to headline, especially if I'm lazy or don't have time, right? But if I'm building a campaign, I might come back in here, filter things for a certain category or campaign, and then rewrite all those headlines before I check off my checkboxes. Right, so that's the second column is going to be the headline, and if I double click it, you'll see again, it's single line text as the format, just like the title. Okay. Then the next thing, and I'm going to refer back here just to make sure I don't sort of forget anything, is I have a hashtags column. Now, this was something I actually added in later on. But the idea is, and again, you'll see later as we build this, is I can tweak the hashtags that I want showing up in that post, right? And this has to do with how I'm campaigning with this content, whom I'm targeting, right? So if I go back here, and I can show you like all these QuickBooks posts, I have hashtag QuickBooks Online, hashtag QuickBooks Help, hashtag Bulletproof Bookkeeping. That last hashtag obviously is something I'm doing to promote my bookkeeping course, right? I want people to start seeing that hashtag and clicking on it, hopefully. So, but the beauty of this is I can easily go in whenever I want to and just change the hashtags, right? Tweak them a little bit. Okay, it always helps, by the way, if when we're building something like this, we put some real live data in here. So I'm just going to grab a post at random, and we're going to put the stuff in here. Okay, and I'll grab the hashtags from this same post. It's again, it just helps to build the structure around sort of live data, if you know what I mean. Okay, so hashtags is the next column. Then the next one after that is mentions, right? Notice, and I don't do this. I'm doing this because I've expressed permission to do it. I have Allison at Intuit mentioned in a lot of anything that I do QuickBooks Online related. If you before doing something like that, ask her. We don't want to flood Allison with a million mentions on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot. And it's a long story, which I don't have time to get into, but we had a conversation a while back, and one of the things that came out of that conversation was, hey, just mention me on anything you post, on Twitter or wherever, and I'll reshare it, retweet it. It's something Allison and I have worked out where she's, helping me and supporting me as somebody from Intuit, and, Intuit as a company has been very good to me in that way and many others. So So I have a column for mentions where, certainly if you do a post about an app that you like, if you do a post about ClickUp, you would definitely want to mention at ClickUp in that post, right? So I'll do the research just to make sure I got the right, because sometimes the actual Twitter handle is going to be a little different. It might be at ClickUp HQ or whatever. So always check to make sure you're using the right handle. But I've got the column for the mentions in there, so that now I've got everything I need to compose the update, whether it's a tweet or a Facebook post. I've got everything there, so that brings us to that next column, which is going to be the composed update. Okay, so going back to our new database, we have hashtags. I need one more, and this is going to be composed update. Okay, now this is going to be a formula. Now in the field types, I can type a search to get to that quickly. If you're new to Airtable, by the way, I encourage you to take the time to scroll this list. These are all the different types of fields that you can make the column. So this way you just get to see what your options are, and seeing what your options are on something like this will often give you ideas for things you can do. That's how I learn a lot of this stuff. I usually don't take tutorials. I just figure it out by doing exactly this. Oh, what does this do, right? So we need a formula here. And basically we want to combine each of the last few columns in an update with a space in between, right? So how many of us know Excel? It's one of the things I love about Airtable is there's a lot of overlap between Airtable and Excel, especially when it comes to formulas. It's a lot simpler in Airtable than what you can do in Excel. But if you know Excel, then you're familiar with a formula called concatenate, which is a way of combining strings of text, right? So that's the formula we want. When I type it in the search, it comes up. So I'm going to choose it. That's just to tell Airtable, hey, this is the function that I want to use, is the concatenate. And it may be hard to see on your screens, but if you look carefully, there's a flashing cursor inside the parentheses that follow the word concatenate on my screen. And that's where it's waiting for me to kind of put something in there. So as soon as I click in there with my mouse, it actually gives me a list of available fields that I can start using in this formula. So the first thing I want is the headline. I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to do a comma. The comma separates one component from another. Quote, space, quote. When you put something in quotes, it's very literal. That's what I want you to put there. So that's how we get the space in. Okay, and then I put a comma in there, and it's waiting for the next thing. So now I'll do the hashtags. Again, comma, quote, space, quote, comma, and now I want the mentions, right? Did I leave my mentions column out? I think I did. I thought I did it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to save this for now, and then we're going to come back and finish it. So you'll see how to edit this. So I got my headline and hashtags. Save. Could have sworn I created it. I guess I went back to the other one and showed it, and I didn't create it. So watch this. We're going to right click, and we're going to insert left. Mentions, right? Also single line text. And we'll just copy this ones. Okay. Now I can double click this column and add that part in. So I just click right after hashtags, comma, quote, space, quote, and a comma again. Remember the quote, space, quote is just to put a space in between the next two things. And now I have my mentions. Now we're not done, because what we're still missing is the URL for the post. Okay. The reason I've done it this way is because just after playing with this for a while now, I've reordered the columns a few times, and just from a workflow standpoint, this is what I like to see, because this is all the stuff, these first few columns is all the stuff that's going to change a lot, right? I'm going to rewrite the headlines. I might want to change the hashtags. I might want to change the mentions that go out the next time I put this out there on a social channel. So that's why I put these first without the actual URL for the post. So let's see what's next. The next thing I do is I have a column that confirms the length, right? So that's going to be another formula that we're going to add in here. So now I'll scroll to my right, hit the plus sign. I just call it LEN for length, and there's a formula called LEN, which tests the length of a field. So just like when we did concatenate, when I first choose the formula, again, that's only to tell Airtable this is the formula that I want to use. Now to build the formula, I have to click where the flashing cursor is in between the parentheses. So now it just needs to know, what do I want to know the length of, right? And what I want to know the length of is the composed update. Now this confirms that the update as of now is 156 characters. Remember, this is going to increase when I get the URL in there, right? And it's also going to increase slightly when I add the image. Actually, I don't think the image counts towards the number of characters. But this helps me confirm that now for Twitter, for example, I don't go over the 280 character limit. Okay, back to here. I have the publication date. So we have a simple date-based column, so publication date, because remember, this is the date that's never going to change. For the type of column, we obviously want a date. And then here, you can choose to include a time field. I don't know why you would include a time field on something like this. You have some date format options you can choose from. I just stick with the default. Unfortunately, they don't have like the double-digit month, day, year format. I do kind of like this one, because it sorts it first by year and then within that by month and day. But I don't think I've used that for this purpose here. I think I've stuck with the standard kind of local date format. Okay, and now you can certainly copy a publication date. I'm just continuing to copy over from the same post. But otherwise, once you have it formatted like a date, you can double click it and you get a standard calendar drop down. Makes it really easy to find and select the date that you want. Okay, next I have my site or property, right? So if you're like me and you publish in multiple places, then you'll want that. And this one we're going to do as a drop down. All right, so I've named it. Here I'm going to click to set the type of column that we want this to be again. And we want it to be single select. Okay. Colored options, sure. And now we can start adding options right away. So obviously I'll do nerdenterprises.com. And what I may do in my own case, and I'll go back in my own and add this, is now that I'm moving content over, this is a great way for me to keep track of what may have been moved over from nerdenterprises.com to, the Kajabi platform, which is at courses.nerdenterprises.com. So I'll give myself that option. And then as you've seen, I posted on Fundira, and I also post on Firm of the Future for Intuit. And you can click and choose these colors. With a paid Airtable account, you have a lot more color choices. Right, so you can color code these. Sometimes when I start doing like Fundira, I think I tried to make their colors somewhat consistent with their branding. Same with Firm of the Future. I try to use Intuit's green. My branding is sort of blue and green on nerdenterprises.com. So, again, these are little visual things that you can use that will really help. Okay, next we have the space for the header image. So for that, we're going to bring back one of the columns I hid, which is going to be the attachments column. So if I go here, I'm going to turn attachments back on. But that's going to put it, by the way, where it was originally placed, which is here. So a really easy way to change the order of the columns. I can click and drag the column, but what's even easier to do is in this hidden field dialog, I can click from here and drag it down to the bottom, and that will reorder it. As you might have noticed, it just moved around in the background. So especially when you start getting a lot of columns in here, much easier to reorder in a long list like this, as opposed to clicking and dragging and moving columns around. Okay, so now I can attach the header image. Watch this, what Airtable does, which is so cool. Once I have an image in an Airtable base like this, I can actually copy and paste it, which I love. So boom, just like that, I have my image in there. And by the way, I want to show you something. Notice when I hover my mouse over it, it gives me a pop-up with the image title. Very, very important. If you're taking notes, make sure you write this one down. Notice I have no spaces in the file name. I have everything separated by a dash. That's important because what I ran into and learned this the hard way is when Zapier tries to pull this data and push it into buffer, including the image file, if there are spaces in the file name of the image, it gets an error. Zapier just can't push that through to buffer for some reason. It can't have any spaces in the file name of the image. Took me a while to figure that out. I had to really read the data that came back from the error message, and it took me a while to figure out what the actual problem was. And I had to go back, and it's not as simple as I can click on this, and there is an option to edit here, which gives you the option to rename it, but that doesn't fix the issue. I tried that, didn't work. Somehow Airtable still remembers the original file name when it's pushing it through. So what I had to do to actually fix this is download the image, delete it from Airtable, rename it, and then upload it again. So I'm saving you a lot of time and trouble here. That's why I stress this, that it's important if you're taking notes to take that note in particular, is that your image file needs to be named with no spaces, and I would probably avoid any special characters like ampersands and other things. Keep it real simple, just like letters and dashes and numbers, right? Like you can see on this one, I have the image dimensions here, which I do a lot with images because oftentimes I'll have different versions, right? I'll have like a 1200 by 1200, and then I'll reduce it down because you don't want to push a really big image through on social media. It'll take forever to download in people's browsers, right? So really, really important detailed stuff here about the image file. Okay, next column. Now we're ready for the URL. Okay, so we're going to create that column now, and then we're going to have to go back and fix my composed update, right? So let's move out to the right, new column, post URL, and there is actually a field type for a URL in Airtable, so might as well use that. Okay, I'm going to come back here just using my data to paste it in. But now this is not the one we want to put in our composed update. We want to shorten that, right? So now I'm going to add the next column for the short URL, okay, which is also going to be a URL type, of course. Now here's what we're going to do to get this set. I have a Zap set up to automatically do this part, but I didn't originally. So all I do is I take the full URL, copy it, Ctrl-C, and we're going to go on to bit.ly, and we're going to use bit.ly to shorten it. I think it was Matthew Fulton who actually suggested to me one day that wouldn't it be easier to just have Zapier automatically do the bit.ly thing? And I was like, that's smart. That's really smart. So I checked, and sure enough, Zapier has bit.ly available, and you can add a step in the Zap that says take the URL from the Airtable, from the post URL, and shorten it and stick it here. Okay, so now let's go back and add that short URL back into my concatenate formula. So I'm shift-tabbing to go back. Here's my composed update. Now I'm double-clicking the column itself because I want to edit the actual formula here. Okay, and then right after mentions, I'm going to click in, comma, quote, space, quote, because I want a space, and then another comma, and now I'm going to scroll down here to my available columns and choose short URL and save. And notice my length went up by about 20 characters. Right, so now the composed update is complete. So let's see what else we got. All right, here then we have the category and the campaign. So now you can start to see, once I figured out the right category here, how I've distinguished the category. The category is Accounting Applications Desk QuickBooks Online, right? That's kind of like the folder where this content goes. The campaign is I want to focus on QuickBooks Online users and provide them with this helpful content, in hopes that eventually somebody might ask me for more help. And, the ones who use it for fun and for free, great. But obviously, there's a certain amount of hope that somebody eventually is going to come and hire me for more help, right? Or sign up for 97 and up and say, hey, this guy looks like he maybe knows what he's talking about, which means I've done a great job of faking it. Just kidding. So again, and all this extra stuff is kind of optional, right? So let's go in here. And I'm going to insert, right? I can't believe how quickly time goes. So category. Now the category, I finished it too soon. If I double click it again, we're going to change. This is also going to be a single select drop down. Save. And campaign, same thing. One way you can save time when you're building this stuff, by the way, is I can simply take this and duplicate it. Since it's basically going to be the same exact setup, now I'm just going to call this campaign. And you've already seen how you can double click either of these columns now and start adding options for your categories. Right? So, and watch this trick. So I can come back here and I'm just going to stop that. Copy and paste the category and campaign I have for this post. And you can paste that in. And now they're both added as an option. Airtable, if you just manually put something in here, Airtable would just assume you want to add it as an option. So it's a pretty cool, quick way. In fact, if you had started to set this up as basic text and just wrote up your categories and campaigns, and then you double click and convert it to a single select, it will just look at all the data that's in there and convert them into options, right? Keeping in mind if there's a typo or a spelling difference, each one of those iterations is going to become its own option. So then you just alphabetize and clean up anything that sort of represents duplication there. Okay, so that's basically, you know, how to build the Airtable. And then, of course, we need the columns for the social networks, right? So let's build that real quick. And as you can see, those are just checkbox columns. So we're going to start with the first one. Post to Twitter. And the type is going to be checkbox. Save, and then we're going to duplicate. And then we're going to duplicate, right? So this is going to be Facebook page. And this is going to be, let's just say LinkedIn. Okay, and now we have our checkbox columns. Okay, date created is an automatic system column that you can add. So I'm just going to add that here. Date created. That's for the, remember, that's for the record itself. We have a separate column that we already went over for the actual publication date. Okay, so the type here is going to be not a date like you might think, but it's going to be the created time. Right, and again, I don't really need the time for this, so I turn that off. But this way I can see when the record was created. This came in really handy once because remember that process I showed you right in the beginning where I copied and pasted everything to kind of reset it? Well, there was one time where evidently I didn't delete everything properly. So I had a bunch of posts that were duplicated, but I was able to sort by the creation date to get rid of all the ones from the older creation date. So I was left with just the, you know, the newest sort of copy of each one. So this became a real sort of lifesaver there that would have taken me hours and hours to fix manually. And then this is something I just recently added where I felt like I want to track the YouTube and Vimeo URLs for the videos that go with these posts. You know, so I've got those in here in this one line item. So again, all that stuff is optional. Now, before we jump into Zapier, because we're actually running short on time, there's one other really important piece to this that's going to make Zapier work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through the Zap. I don't think I need to show you how to create the Zap because if I just walk you through the steps and walk you through the configuration, that should give you what you need to know how to build the Zap in Zapier so that you can automate the posts. Speaking of which, let's check in on Buffer. Here it is. So remember I did this when we first started? And sometimes, and I've learned to kind of go slowly normally when I do this instead of just copying and paste the one check mark. Because in some cases you can see it pushes so much data so quickly that it actually puts like 3 different posts in the exact same time slot. Which I didn't know Buffer could do that, but I guess Buffer is just getting hit so hard with the API. And I've gotten warnings where I've done so many posts at once that Buffer kicks out an error saying you can only do like 100 posts at a time. So Matthew says that is a new feature to your Airtable, the checkboxes for different social media channels. No, I actually built those manually. I just created these manually. I just created a checkbox column type for each social network because now I want to show you how we're going to use this. Because I had done this a little differently the first go around, but I felt it was a bit clunky in terms of how it was working. And so I wanted something that would make it really easy. And what happened is, as I was playing around in Zapier to see what my choices are, now let me just go and find the Zaps, because now I'll start kind of bouncing between the two a little bit. You'll see I've got a lot going on in Zapier such that I have a lot of folders here with different Zaps. So here it is, social posting. I created a folder just for this. So you'll see I actually have a Zap for each different network, right? Now, why is that? Because when I was looking at the triggers that were available to me, because I was trying to think in terms of how do I get Zapier to take something from Airtable like this and just schedule it onto this network. And in poking around, I noticed that one of the triggers that's available in Zapier from Airtable is the content appearing in a new view. Now, to explain this properly, I need to explain to you what a new view means. Matthew says, is it true? Are you much happier now? I'm not sure I understand the question. So notice here, I had named this table content main. Notice here, this one's called grid view, right? But I can create other views, right? There's some standard ones. I can do forms, calendars, gallery, and so on. What I ended up doing, just to skip past all the sort of pain I went through trying to figure out how to do this. So now knowing what I know, what you'll want to do once you get your basic grid view completed is you'll want to choose this option. I clicked on these three little dots here, the more menu, or it's called an ellipsis, Greg taught me. The ellipsis here. And that gives you some options with respect to what you can do with this whole base. So I'm going to duplicate this view. Oh, Matthew says Zapier equals happier. Yes, I am much happier now. So I'm going to duplicate this view, okay? And we're going to call this Twitter. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a filter that's specific to this view, right? Anything I do here now is specific to this Twitter view. Notice if I click this drop down, I now have two, grid view and Twitter. So I'm in the Twitter view. I'm going to create a filter, add filter, where, and I'm going to find that Twitter column where post to Twitter is checked. Notice what that did in the background is it got rid of all of, because there's nothing with Twitter checked off. Because what I noticed as I was poking around in Zapier trying to figure out how to make this work is that there was a trigger that says when a new row appears in a specific view. So in Zapier, what I was able to do is point to this specific view for Twitter and say, if something new appears here, then take it and grab all the data that's there and push it into buffer, right? And I'm going to walk you through exactly what that setup looks like in the last few minutes that we have left, right? So of course, now that I've done this, what I can do is I can duplicate this. Okay, and this is going to be LinkedIn, let's just call it. And then I'm just going to tweak my filter here. And instead of post to Twitter, it's post to LinkedIn. So first I have to uncheck this, I think, to get everything to show. And there's LinkedIn, right where LinkedIn is checked. Okay, and then we're going to duplicate this. And this is going to be for Facebook. We'll be specific Facebook page because you could also do a Facebook group if you wanted to. And again, we're going to tweak the filter. And by the way, I can do the search here right in this dropdown if I know what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for Facebook page, I can just start typing it. And there it is. So now I've got Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook page all set up. So that if I go out here and I check off post to Twitter, it will now show up in the Twitter view. Okay, so that's how I did this. I configured a separate view for each social network, right? If I switch this over to LinkedIn, LinkedIn is blank. But if I go back to grid view and I check off LinkedIn here, and I go back to LinkedIn now, there it is. So as soon as I check something off in one of those checkboxes from the grid view, that means a new post appears in the respective social media handle view that I've created, right? And that's how Zapier gets set up. So I'm going to walk you through how I set up the Twitter Zap. They all work the same now. They're just looking for a different social network being checked off in Airtable. So let's edit this post to Twitter one. Okay, and actually notice it's a very simple Zap actually once you figure out how to build it. It's 2 steps. The trigger is Airtable and the action is to put it into buffer, right? But there's lots of options inside that have to be, tweaked, so to speak, okay? So first I've chosen the app for the trigger is of course Airtable. And notice the trigger event is new record in view, right? So we're looking for a new record in a specific view. All right, so then I have to tell it which of my Airtable accounts to use. I only have one, but the flexibility is there. If I had multiple Airtable accounts, I could choose from among them. Okay, and then here, record customized. So we've established now that the trigger is there's an item in a view, a new item in a view. So now I have to tell it, where are you looking for this stuff? Well, the base is the base that I've got called content. Remember, this is working off of my actual one, not the one we've just created. So the base is the content base. The table is called nerdenterprises.com. That's what I've named the table here. Okay, and then let me move this tab over. And then the view for this one is post to Twitter. Right, so anytime there's new content in the post to Twitter view, then that's the trigger. That means this trigger is successful, so it's going to go on to the next step. And all I did once I built this one was duplicate the Zap and just change this option from Twitter to Facebook or to LinkedIn and so on. And now let's look at what I did in Buffer. Okay, so first, the actual action event is add something to Buffer. All right, again, I have to tell it, which of my Buffer accounts. And then here's the real meat of this, right? So the profile is going to be my Twitter profile on Buffer, right? So once you link your Buffer account to Zapier, it's going to see whatever social profiles you've got connected to Buffer. So for this one, I chose Twitter. Obviously, when I copied it over to do Facebook, this becomes Facebook and so on. The text, I simply click on this because this option here means insert a field from the source, which in this case is Airtable. So all I had to do is tell it to insert whatever's in that composed update column, right? So it's very easy. You click on this, and if I know what I'm looking for, I can just start typing composed, and it will find it composed update, and it gives you sample data from your actual database so that you can confirm that you're getting exactly what you want in there. Okay, and then the next one is the photo URL. Okay, and so from here, I chose this. This one I had to play with a little bit because it's not exactly clear which option is going to get you the image. So I had to play with it until I found the one that got me the actual image, which happens to be this one. It says header image thumbnails full URL. Because I didn't choose this one originally because it looked like it was just going to get me the URL to the image. But as it turns out, what it's really doing is it's telling you, get the image from this URL and include it in the post. So it will pull the actual image, but this is where I go back to what I stressed earlier. This is where that image file name has to have no spaces or any special characters. That's what was triggering an error right at this part, right? Buffer didn't want to take the image where the name of the image file was sort of broken up. Okay, and then here you have a choice. You can actually add this to the top and make it the next post that goes out. I said no because normally I just want to add it to sort of the bottom of the queue in Buffer. And obviously the option to do it right away is no. That's the whole point, is I want to stick it into Buffer so that Buffer kind of, spaces it out in terms of when it posts stuff. And that's it. That's the whole Zap. And then, like I said, once I built this for Twitter, it's a simple, you go in here and you can copy the Zap. And then all I had to do is change the option. So the Airtable option was now the LinkedIn view, and the Buffer option was now to the LinkedIn profile. Everything else is the same. So once I built one of these, tested it, and got it working, it took less than 5 minutes to build the rest of this. And now I have a process which, as you saw starting at the beginning of the hour, enables me to go into my content database here and just check stuff off, and within minutes, it gets scheduled to go into the social platform, right? Here's Twitter, here's Facebook, right? So here's all the new posts going to Facebook. Again, you don't necessarily want to copy and paste like I did. I did that today in the interest of time. I normally check them off a little slowly on purpose so that you avoid this kind of doubling up on posts. Again, for me, it's not the end of the world when this happens because I have plenty of content. But if you only have like 30 posts to cycle through, then you definitely want to go slow on this and not post everything all at once, right? And then, of course, Buffer I didn't really get into, but you go into your settings here, and you can go to your posting schedule. And so network by network, depends on which one you've got selected on the left, you can configure the times, right? So Twitter is obviously heavy rotation. Notice I pretty much have something going out every hour, right? Facebook page, you want to do a little less often, right? And fewer, throughout the day. LinkedIn, I think I have comparable to Twitter. It just posts kind of all day long. Instagram, definitely less often. Instagram actually is the least often. You just don't want to post a lot on Instagram. A few posts throughout the day is all you need or want. And then we have the, I have the Facebook group here set up where it would post 2 a day, but I never post to the Facebook group because I feel like that would just annoy people seeing my blog posts come in there. But I had it set up because I thought about doing it and it's still there. So I never actually use this for that. So kind of glancing here at the chat and the Facebook feed, I don't see any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if anybody does have any questions, comments, or thoughts. And I have one person who is sitting in the queue there. So, all right, so everybody's quiet. So it either means I completely lost you or you're just blown away. Katrina says, great presentation in the chat. All right, well, I hope it wasn't overwhelming. I hope it made sense. I'm trying to look at people's faces.
No, it was great.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, that was really good and really smooth, and 2 thumbs up, Seth.
Okay, cool. Well, you'll definitely want the recording, obviously, if you want to go through this and set it up. So as per usual, I will make sure that happens tomorrow, but it will be going up in the new area, which is at courses.nerdenterprises.com. So just make sure you've registered for the blog there, and that's where you'll find it. I'll share my screen really quickly to show you exactly where you'll find that. So again, if we go here to courses, and once you've signed up for the blog here, you go to my courses, and then we go to Nerd's blog. And you'll see I have a whole category just for Zoom in with Seth, David, and friends. So you'll click here, and you'll find it right here. These are the last couple that I did. So this is where you'll find it once I publish this tomorrow. Of course, we also have the Facebook live feed, which is available right now if you want to go back right away and review it and get your own setup. And of course, if you need or want more help, I am here for that. If you're in 97 and up, all you have to do is bring it up on one of our calls and we'll go through it. If you are not in 97 and up, join 97 and up, or you can sign up for one-on-one with me, whatever you prefer. Definitely more cost effective to join 97 and up though, just saying. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So everybody have a wonderful Friday. Miss Gina today, I'm assuming she's doing her hangout later on. So check that out, whatever she's doing. I'm sure it's always very good. SBAA on Facebook is her group. You can join the group and get the information for how to join her hangout later on today. I believe it starts at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. They talk offline for a half an hour, and then they go online after having figured out what they're doing.
Actually, it starts about 2 offline.
Oh, it's 2 offline, then 2:30 is the live. Got it. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, and 2:30 to 3, and then 3 on offline again.
Gotcha. So offline, you guys figure out what you want to talk about online, and then you talk online, and then go offline.
And then afterwards, we trash everybody.
Perfect. I like it. Now I have to go back and watch them all and see what you said about me.
We do that offline.
All right. Oh, that's right. I won't see it. Oh, well. All right, everybody. Have a great Friday. I will speak to you all very soon. And you know where to find me if you need anything.
Thanks, Seth.
You got it.